Hiya crafty folks, Amy here with Amy's Wares, and today I'm going to do a fun technique of stamping with water. Now here's a couple goodies that I recently acquired from Simon Says Stamp. I will link them in the video description box below. Here's a photo of the finished card to show you the directions that are cards to show you the direction that we're headed, but I started off with some previously ink blended panels. Before I filmed this, I did some simple ink blending. I started off with blending brushes, but then switched to blending foams just because I find it easier. Cracked pistachio, forest moss, and chipped sapphire on that first panel. Milled lavender, Victoria velvet, and seedless preserves on the middle one. Then on the third, wild honey, lumberjack plaid, and aged mahogany. And I used those three colors on some accent opaque 120-pound cardstock, and those panels are US A2 size, 4 1/4 inches by 5 1/2. Now this is a rubber, red rubber background stamp from Simon. It's a 6x6, and I'm working in a full-size MISTI. You'll see here I decided to take out, this is my Waffle Flowers grip mat, just because that rubber stamp is kind of thick, so I want to make sure I don't put any strain on the door when I'm trying to do this technique. Now, I'm lining up the panel here, and then I'm going to basically attach it or stick the panel to the base of the MISTI. I was initially thinking tape, but then I remembered, oh yeah, I have one of these thin sticky mats from scrapbook.com. Now, this would have worked if I would have thought to secure it down well within the MISTI, because you'll see in a moment I'm going to go at this kind of backwards. I'm going to bring the paper to the stamp rather than just putting the door down on top of it. And you'll see why in a moment, because I'm actually going to stamp with some water. Now here I'm thinking this tape right here is going to hold it down, not thinking about the other side of the sticky mat, and you're about to see what happens. But the reason I'm flipping over this way, see, you can see I just dumped it right down on it, about messed it all up. It changed the lineup of the stamp, which was not ideal, but it ended up okay. Anyway, the reason I'm going backwards like this is because you saw I spritzed water all over that stamp. Now, there was some residual water kind of in the wells of that stamp, and I didn't want all that water to dump down onto the panel. So instead, I wanted just the water that was on the upper ridges of the stamp to come in contact with the paper. So I hope that makes sense. That's why I decided to bring the paper on top of the panel. Now, you could absolutely just stick this rubber mat down, or sorry, this rubber stamp down right on your work surface, and then just put the paper down on top of it. But I wanted to be able to use my MISTI and do it twice just in case. But the second time around, I got smarter. I decided not to use the sticky mat and just tape the panel down directly into the base of the MISTI. So I could have done this again with that sticky mat and just taped it down better so that it didn't fall out all clumsy because I wasn't thinking. But there's multiple ways to do this technique. Ultimately, the main takeaway here is using a stamp with water on a water reactive ink. So distress oxides are water reactive. Distress inks are water reactive. Catherine Pooler's are water reactive. So if you have a water reactive dye ink or a hybrid ink, this technique will work. And if you have background stamps, this is a really fun way to kind of use them in a different way. So I'm just using paper towel to kind of pounce up any residual, and as it dries back, it will become a little bit more defined. Now, this is a subtle technique. It's not going to be as in your face as just stamping it outright, but it's another fun way to stretch your supplies and really get use out of them by stamping with water. So think about ways that you can use. Maybe you have a really cool floral stamp that's red rubber, or it might even work, honestly, with photopolymer. It's really just a matter of getting the water to react with that water reactive ink. Now here I'm going to show you another option. This is obviously a more traditional route. Now, even though I used one of the colors, Seedless Preserve, in this blend, coming at it, stamping it directly is going to be a lot more saturated in terms of the pigment. So now I'm just showing you a more traditional way to do it. So this one I'm just going to stamp outright. Again, I'm using the MISTI so I can stamp it more than once if I need to get nice even coverage. But I'm using that Seedless Preserve over this blended panel, and I'm using my press tool that my friend made me, and I'm just going to get this nice, beautiful design and a nice, rich, dark, pigmented seedless preserve stamping on this. So I'm going to do it a couple times just to make sure there's not any little spots that aren't quite so solid. Just pressing it down in a couple areas, and then that's going to be another way, obviously a more traditional way to use this sort of stamp. So lots of fun ways you can use your background stamps. This is just obviously one option. Now, I want to do some die cutting with that really cool die that I showed you. So I'm creating my own custom colored cardstock with the same Distress Oxide pads that I used for the blending and for the stamping. So I have more of that 120 pound accent opaque. I'm just going direct ink to paper and just smushing it down right on that cardstock in 3 of the colors. So I'll have one for each of the panels, and then I also have some extra white cardstock that I can use for some of the shadow layers, because I don't know if you saw, I'll show you in a moment on that die. It's actually a 2-part die. It's a word die and a shadow layer die. So I'm just going to clean up my work surface, let those dry a little bit while I go to town trying to snip this. Now, I have these little fine snips, and I got to tell you, this one was pretty hard to get in there. I don't know if you struggle with that too, or if you have any tips, let me know in the comments if you have a way to kind of get into these little openings, even with these little fine nips. Snips? Wow, I'm not awake. Anyway, let me know if you have tips on how to do that easier, because I feel like that took me a really long time. So I did the word layer in the custom colored cardstock, and I did the shadow layer of that love die with just some more of the white cardstock, so it'll give it some separation from the background. Here's the panels. You can see it's a lot more visible as it dries back, and this one is nice and dramatic and cool. So it's just a matter of putting these pieces together, figuring out what other components I want to use. I know one of them I want to be for my daughter for Valentine's Day, one I want to be for my husband for Valentine's Day, and then another one just to love you. And I did decide to cut those panels down slightly smaller than A2, so I used that stitched edge rectangle die. Here I'm showing you, these are Tailored Expression simple strips. I just snipped off the U off of one of them, and the other one I used a white on white, so white heat embossing on white cardstock, and then I was able to custom color it. You'll see that in a moment. Here's my beloved card bling. This is from a Colorful Life Designs. There's over 100 colors in the shop, but those are the colors I used. I will link everything below. Here you can see I used that U from the simple strip and pop that up. This one I did the custom colors, so it's white heat embossed on white, and then I just did again ink to paper with the Distress Oxide color to match. And this one is the stamping, and I have this cute little critter and some more simple strips from Tailored Expressions. So I will link everything below in the video description box. If you follow my links, it really does help me out. No additional cost to you. If you enjoyed this, please do hit the thumbs up, and I will catch you next time. Bye.